All right, man. I thought we could start here.
Sure.
How do you spend the first 2 hours of your day?
Well, you know what? We work out in the morning as a team, which is fun.
So you work out with the boys?
I do. I don't get to do everything because I'm old, but and not nearly as strong. But it's a pretty fun time. Our strength coach has a great time with it. I enjoy that. So that's.
I don't believe that you're not nearly as strong. And
not even close.
Is there something to be said for everybody that's listening to this that's, I don't know, that's like over 40, that if you really want to supercharge your workouts, go give your ego, put some stress on your ego and go work out with a bunch of student athletes?
It's eye-opening. I'll say that. Maybe a little humiliating as well.
I can imagine. What else, outside of the workout, what else do you need to get done to set yourself up for a good day?
Fortunately, we have a great staff, so I come in and check in, and they usually have everything rolling for us. Specifically, our director of ops, he's phenomenal. He was a George Lewis. He coached in the North American League, he coached in the USHL, and he understands hockey extremely well, and he's unbelievably organized. So if I want a good day, I don't do things myself. I go check in with him, and things seem to go a lot better.
Oh, man, that's a good plan. Given this time of year, and I know that, for a lot of coaches tuning in, they're used to call it a traditional training camp. So you got a fair amount of runway with your team. You can kind of build in a lot of the systems and processes that to get yourself rolling in the season. Not so much the case in the NCAA. I sense it would be damn near impossible to cover everything you'd like to before the puck drops on opening night. But what are some of the things that are critical or that you've learned that says, hey, we got to, if we do anything, we got to address these couple of areas?
I think it depends on how you play and what your concepts, what your philosophy is, and really what your stripes are, like what your identity is. I think for us, a lot of it is we love creativity. We love guys to play with instinct and fly around. So when we talk about our structure, it's just very well defined and fairly easy to understand. It's a lot of encouraging of playing fast and playing aggressive. And so for us, it's really getting down the stripes, our identity. That's what we try to do early in the season. And you're right, it's probably, there's limits to how often coaches can be on the ice, etc. But I think when you have a clear plan of how you want to play, and if it's fairly well defined, I think you can get a lot done.
I guess, how do you get up in front of your team? When you talk about the creativity, I'd be curious, how do you get up in front of your team and articulate what that means to your group? And then also, how do you, I guess, bring that to life in practice and balance that while also having some structure to your game as well?
Well, it's everything you do. I think that's the beauty and the art of coaching. I don't think it's like this is what we do in the forecheck, offensive zone, etc. I think it's how you fit it all together with the concept of how you play in your identity. And that's what I think that's the fun part about coaching. And I think we have a good understanding of that with our staff. So it's everything we do, from meetings to video sessions to analytics to how we practice to how the skill session works. It's all of it fits together and how enhancing our game. So that's a longer conversation, but it's basically putting it all together that it reinforces our basic vision of how we play.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I guess what I'm hearing is that maybe for that message to really land, is it sort of part of a process where it's got to inform everything, including saying no to some things that might work for other teams, but for your team, you're just like, hey, that's great for them and it's not bad, but this is what we're doing.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. You have to be really well defined with what you want. You can't be everything to everybody. You have to be really comfortable with your stripes and your identity. And then once you know that and you have buy-in with that, it's pretty much everything you do along the way has to reinforce it. You can't just talk about it once and expect that, oh boy, we get it. It's every practice, every skill session, every analytics, every video meeting supports and enhances that vision. That's what's important. And I find that the real fun part about coaching.
Well, speaking of creativity, how's this Gavin McKenna kid look?
He's fairly creative. He's very creative. He's a different animal. His brain is so fun to watch. I can't explain how he does what he does. So I can't really tell you because I don't know how. It's how do I explain it? He has a way of making such a calm perfectly executed play in really harsh traffic. And I don't know how
Yeah.
that happens. I don't know how you know what, I grew up in Edmonton, so I remember my dad taking me to watch Gretzky early. And
Really? No way.
yeah, I remember the first time I ever went and saw him, and we didn't know anything about him back then. We just heard. And we watched him in warm up. We're like, I don't, yeah, he looks all right. And then you see him in games, and then he does things with his mind that you just, how the heck, how do you see that? And that's like Gavin. We find ourselves like the coaches looking at each other, going, "What did he? How? Just I don't know how he sees what he sees. He thinks the game and sees the game at a much different level. That's all how I can explain it to you."
Well, I was thinking about this, man. Like, I look at I look at your roster, but then I look at a lot of teams' rosters in Division One, and I would say probably more than any other year, like it would be really tough for you to evaluate what other teams have, and probably really tough for them to evaluate what you have.
I'd agree.
And there's going to be a sense there's going to be a real feeling out period. But what is clear is, I mean, you've got, in addition to Gavin, you've got some super talented returning players, and you've got some players coming in that have got clearly some really high end offensive skill. As in the early part of this season, like how do you kind of stir this cocktail to make it all work? And both in terms of chemistry, but I would imagine both in terms of like, there's only one puck.
Well, true, but I certainly don't think that anybody that says they have an answer to that. I mean, I don't know. I think that's something that evolves during the season. Everybody has a plan going in, but I think part of it with us is we've gone into this with a very inquisitive mindset. Not this is what's going to happen, but let's put some things together. A lot of players have played with a lot of different players during so far on the ice, and we want to see what what synergy happens. You're correct, but I think that's sort of a privilege to have that challenge, right? So if it's a challenge that you have very talented players that all want the puck, I think that's a good thing. So it'll be interesting, but it'll be fun to see it happen. And a lot of it has to happen, I feel, organically, because in the past we have had a line be the high scoring line in the NCAA. And what was really fun about that is when they were put together, they weren't put together because any of the coaches were like, oh, like, I think that's really going to fit together. They actually were put together at the time. None of them were playing well. And they sort of were put together on the fourth line, to be honest with you. And then, of course, as the coaching staff all took credit that we had some scheme. We saw what we saw and we put them together. We knew it was going to happen. We had no idea. So a lot of it is just, I think if you're inquisitive enough and you agree to try different things, that you wait to see what synergy happens.
I'm sure that at your level, that sometimes you use the polls to your advantage in the sense of maybe saying, "Hey, like, look, we're not even ranked. Like, we're the underdog. We're going to show them." And there's probably other years where you look at the polls and be like, "Hey, ignore the polls. Don't pay attention to them." And you guys enter this year, at least early on here, the preseason polls. I think you're ranked in the top 5 with all of them, and kind of the consensus top ranked team in the Big Ten. I think anybody that's been around sports knows that doesn't mean anything, but it does create some noise. And I would anticipate that, this is a year, especially given some of the players you've attracted on the recruiting trail, that you're gonna have a bit of a target on your back. How do you manage that narrative with your group of being the hunted, I guess?
Well, I think part of that is handled by being at Penn State. Penn State, you just talked earlier about our football team is ranked second in the nation, and they have, every weekend they play here, there's 110,000 people coming out and thousands more surrounding the stadium. Our wrestling team, has won 12 national championships in the last 14 years.
Oh, that's nuts.
I'm telling you, it is they are at a different level. I mean, that is, I think they are the most successful sports program in the history of NCAA. We just talked about our women's volleyball team, which was unbelievable and won an incredible national championship last year. And so the reason I bring this up is I think every student athlete that comes to Penn State, whether they're a hockey player or someone else, I think they understand this pretty well. I think if pressure and expectations are something that bothers you or you're not uncomfortable with, I don't think Penn State is where you go. So I think just the surrounding the environment of this athletic department, I think it makes it it makes it, I'm not saying you're ever comfortable no matter where you are in the polls, and correctly, the preseason polls are not something that we've ever, no matter where we are, have really paid a lot of attention to. As you know, it doesn't really matter at all. But I think just the environment of Penn State athletics, it's something that doesn't make it very uncomfortable at all.
When you guys go to Ohio State to play, do you fly or do you take a bus?
We'll fly.
Okay. So let's go back to December 6th of last year. You're leaving Columbus. You just lost your 8th consecutive game in the Big Ten. Um, what's the self-talk like on the plane ride home?
Well, the self-talk was with coaches, and it's funny. I mean, I do know the record, and in fact, yeah, correct. We were winless, and in fact, after Christmas was sort of like the unofficial halfway point. We lost our next game too, so we were win. It was we lost in a shootout, but we were really winless in 9 after the halfway point. And so I know what you're asking, and it's funny because the coaches, you know, hockey's a unique game. I mean, teams can play really well and lose, and I'm not saying that happened every game. We lost games we deserved to lose, but we also lost several games that we were really, as coaches, we were very happy with how we played and where we were going. But what happened in all of it, it was not necessarily the coaches talk or the coaches getting together. It was the internal leadership and our locker room that really came together and made a decision based on our values and what they were going to be. And to boil it down, I'm sure it's more complex than just this, but they were like, hey, that's it. Like no more negativity. Like we are going to be positive about this. And it's the locker room that turned this around. And boy, were they fun to watch once they did.
What I love about that is that the message isn't, hey, we're going to finish our checks more, or we're going to be, we're going to work hard. It was just simply like the mindset of saying, hey, like if we do one thing, we're just not going to be negative. And, I guess that comes with a certain amount of trust in your locker room, because, the stuff that gets said when you're not there, I sense, is more important than the stuff that you say when you're in front of the group. How do you sort of build that I don't know if culture gets thrown around a lot, but maybe just how do you establish that trust so as a coach that in those situations which happen, and they happen to good teams, that the players are going to say the right things and they're going to get two hands on the wheel?
So first of all, when you talk about culture being thrown around, I mean, I hear it too. And to me, it is not a buzzword at all. I mean, it is absolutely essential and paramount to what Penn State hockey has done, 100%. It truly is. And again, we're a new program here, basically jumping into the Big Ten, and we weren't going to win automatically by just the talent we put on the ice. We need to find different ways. And so culture and environment and the atmosphere was just super important. So that I don't take lightly. And it's been building, and you have to credit a lot of the players, not just players in this current team and the leadership last year, but for a while to get it to this point. It just doesn't happen, and you can't just get it once and leave it. But when you talk about trust, there's another thing. Like I said, it's not. We had the analytics behind us. It's not like we were playing poorly. There was a number of analytics that we were very happy with, and we just didn't happen to win. So, for example, I remember a game earlier in the year that was on the road in the Big Ten, and we outshot our opponent 28-12 and lost 1-0 with 26 seconds left to go in the game. So you can be very upset, or you can be disappointed that you lost the game. But there was a lot of things that the coaches, were saying, man, we did a lot of what we've done is as good as we've done. And so we had belief, and I think the players knew that too. But the key is what you said earlier, is it's more important what happens when the coaches leave the room than when it's in it. So it's not necessarily the coaches that manage the culture. It's your leadership group, and that is exactly what happened. Is when the coaches were out, I think great things were said and reinforced when we were in there. However, it's way more important what happens when we were gone. And we had players. I'll just mention it took a large leadership group. But there's a guy, Carson Dick, who's from Alberta, and I think you probably are familiar with his father.
Yeah.
He is as special a leader as you will ever find in hockey or anywhere else. And I know he was a big proponent of this. Simon Mack was another one. He was our captain last year. He's doing a great job with Calgary Flames right now.
Yeah.
Ben Schoen, who is also currently on our team now because he redshirted, he broke his ankle and was able to have a fifth year. He was another guy that really stood up and demanded the culture that I think you all want. But when the coaches leave, you don't know if it's going to be managed. They managed it, and many other players too. But I think those were three guys that really stepped to the forefront. And it wasn't that the coaches knew it was going to happen. Very, very happy it did. But all of it is on them. They did it all, and that was really nice to see.
Talk to me about with it or on it.
Well, so where did you hear? I'm curious later as to where you heard that, but what that is it's a statement. It's a military statement, and the reason we had that as sort of a rallying cry is you've heard of the Murph. You look like a very in shape guy. I would think that you're a guy that heard of the Murph challenge. Do you know what that is?
No, I'm more like the dad bod challenge. But go ahead. Let's hear about the Murph challenge.
So the Murph challenge is a challenge that like you have to run. You run a mile, then you do 100 push-ups or 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups,
Oh, Jesus.
300.
Who's
squats.
Murph? Who's Murph?
Well, Murph so it's named from. Did you ever see the movie Lone Survivor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually there's a hockey player from BC that plays Murph. Actually, he's a famous actor
way.
now. Yeah. So in any event, Murph, the military, the SEAL who this movie is about, was actually a Penn Stater, and there's a memorial to him on campus, which is really cool. And we happen to one of our awesome alumni named Ricky DeRosa. He's very successful in the financial business, and he was like, I came across this speaker. He goes, you got to have him at Penn State hockey. He's actually a Penn Stater, played lacrosse, and as it turned out, he was the guy that trained Murph and his team for that mission that's in the movie.
No
kidding. Yeah, and so he came back. We did the Murph challenge, which was fun, which was cool.
Did you do it?
I did do it.
Attaboy.
It was good. It was fun, hard but fun. And then Dave Rutherford, this Penn Stater who trained the SEALs, and Murph himself came in and spoke to us and told them what that statement really means, with it or on it, and basically said, hey, if you're going to use this statement, this is what it means. Like I think it has. I remember him saying that he believes in the message transferring over to sport, but understand this is a whole new meaning when you're talking about Navy SEALs and military and going on a mission that truly is life or death. And what with it or on it means is it's a statement that says you're coming back, with your shield or on it. And basically he talks about what it means to the Navy SEALs and to the people in that mission that you're going to go all, you're all in. Basically you are all in. You're either all in or not. And if you're going to do this, let's do this. And he was an amazing speaker. Our team took to it really, really well. And it was obviously very, very significant and influential.
That's very cool. And you did an interview with him, and I did a bit of a deep dive. Fascinating guy.
He's unbelievable.
Guy.
Yeah. Fascinating man. Yes.
So, we were chatting before we hit record, and you mentioned the Penn State women's volleyball program.
Yeah.
And like literally, this morning, the first thing I did is I found this video. It was called The Comeback. Your athletic department just put it out, but it was about last season. So this would have been in December.
Yeah.
Your women's volleyball team goes to the Final Four. They're down 2-0 against Nebraska, which is a wagon. And they come back and they win, and then go on to win the national championship. And not only that, Katie Schumacher, their coach, like I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my God, like she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer last September. So she's dealing with all this as the season goes on.
Yeah.
I understand that you brought her in. I sense it was like maybe right after Christmas to speak with your team. I mean, are you able to share maybe the message that she shared about,
Sure,
I guess maybe both those experiences?
Sure. So again, that was extremely impactful, and
I bet.
Where this is in timing, Murph spoke to us as we were actually heading before Christmas. We played Army at DC in the same weekend as the Army Navy football game, which was awesome. And it was in Washington Capitals Arena. It was awesome. It was fantastic. And so the message was well timed for that. But what happened is when we came back, it was at the time that the women's volleyball team won the national championship. And and I remember walking into the locker room, and our team was in a very it was a very different discussion. Normally there's guys talking and laughing and they do what they do. And this you could tell was something different. And they were discussing, they were actually bewildered. They were like, how did that happen? Because you talked about playing Nebraska, which was a wagon, and them being down 2-0. They were also down, games go to 25. They were down 22-16 in the third game. And I think there was,
I missed that. That's unreal.
it's incredible. They were down 22-16 in the third game. And I think there was a stat that was flashed up on the TV that said, Penn State has a 0.03% chance of winning this match or whatever. Like, it was unbelievable. And they came back to win it, which was just insane. And our guys were like, how? Like, how does that happen? Like, what happened? How? And they were talking about this, and the student athletes here have really good relationships. And I think some of them, they reached out to their counterparts on the women's volleyball team and asked, and I was extremely curious and was able to talk to Coach Katie, and what she talked about was amazing. And I said, geez, if you don't mind, like, our team has some questions for you. And she was like, sure. So she came to our locker room with a couple of the other coaches, and our team asked her questions. And I think that was a little bit of the impetus of why Carson Dick, Simon Mack, Ben Schoen stood up and they basically, hey, this is what we're doing. And a lot of it had to do with not necessarily physical play, but how to handle adversity, which you mentioned Coach Katie going through cancer during this time. I mean, and this team being down 2-0, being down 22-16 is just an incredible story. And I think our team got a lot about the mental strength it takes and the benefit of being extremely positive. And that was, again, another very impactful thing.
No kidding. No kidding. Well, I mean, it clearly was, because I mean, if you're a fan and you just and I was going through it last night, like going through your season, it was like literally somebody came in and just flipped the light switch on, and you guys just, went up and to the right. When that happens with your team, and I think for myself, most people listening, like sometimes coaching is as much about feeling as it is about what you see. How do you balance, I guess, maybe that feeling of saying, hey, I think we're in one right now in a good way, and maybe we don't want to get too involved or get in the way or overcoach, and we want to ride this wave.
Well, you said something earlier, and I a couple questions ago, you were talking and you said that what you liked about it is it wasn't that, like, we didn't bring in one new player, we didn't change one system, we didn't there was, I guess, trust in the analytics we had, but it was also a belief in what we were doing. And that's what was great about it. It wasn't like, hey, there's this magic pill, we change this and it's going to change everything. We didn't change a thing. What was changed was the commitment of the team to each other in terms of being positive in such a, I mean, you're down, you haven't won, and it's past the halfway point of your season. That it's easy to throw in the towel, and at that time, or to think selfishly, and they just didn't do it. So when you talk about what happened after that, it was, I tell you what, we as coaches stayed out of the way. As much as anything, we put checks and balances on ourselves, not like to stand back and enjoy this. And that's really what we were doing. And I got to tell you, for a team that has lost, the first nine games of their conference season, to see them after that and how much fun they were having was really fun to be around. I mean, we weren't necessarily, it's not that we were coaching the team. We were just really felt pretty grateful to be a part of the team and just enjoy what they were doing, because it was a blast.
Love that. And just, for everybody that doesn't know how the story ends, I mean, you guys end up going to your, you beat UConn in overtime in Allentown. Thriller of a game. You go to the program's first ever Frozen Four. And, again, I mean, Yeah, I know you a little bit. I think you know how I feel about you. There's this image. If you go to your bio on the Penn State website, there's the picture of the team on the ice. We've all seen that picture. They're celebrating. There's the trophy, and there's everybody in the program. And I'm looking at this picture. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And then I'm like, where's Guy? And it was like, where's Waldo? And I'm like going through the image, and I'm like trying to find you. And you're way in this back. You're in the like you can barely see it. And my impression was like that's I'm sure in that moment there's instinct or maybe even people saying, hey Guy, like you're the coach, you got to get up to the front. And I sense that just what you described about just being grateful to be a part of the team in that image, like you seemed really grateful just to be in the fact that hey, you were just a part of the image, you didn't need to be the front of it. And I guess in that moment, dude, I think this is year 15 at Penn State. I'm sure it's not it's not linear as you build a program.
Yeah.
In that moment, what are the things you reflect on to say, hey, like I'm really glad we went through that experience or this happened to us, because it was all a culmination to get to there.
Oh, it sure was, and you're 100% correct. I mean, honestly, it was just so much fun to be along for the ride, and it was the internal leadership that really took us there. And then some players played the best hockey that they had, obviously, the second half, which was so fun to watch. I mean, it seemed like every second week there was someone that was going to be on SportsCenter highlight of the night. I mean, some great fun things were happening. It was fun to watch, very fun to be a part of it, and I felt very privileged to be along for the ride. But when you talk about that, like when Didi scored, when Matt DiMarsico scored that goal, like you're elated, and automatically you think back to like, honestly, back to Terry Pagula starting this thing and what his vision was, and then how many people said, you're going to get killed. Like, why do you want to go there? You're going to get destroyed for 3 years. You won't win a game for 3 years in the conference, things like that. And the little checklists along the way. And it really, that culminated, it was 14 years of a lot of people believing and doing a lot of work for the program. And it happens not only from Mr. Pagula and the administration that worked so hard to get this started, but just so many players from along that were there for the little checklist. We're supposed to not win a game, so you couldn't come in and say, hey, is our season defined whether we had a winning season or not? People, we were writing that we wouldn't win one game. So that's what our checklist was, like the first win, the first home win, the first away win, Big Ten win, Big Ten sweep, etc. And you think back to the moments along the way that were little milestones that sort of led to going to the Frozen Four. Was really fun to think about. And not only the success on the ice, but again, for us, it was the players that really made the strongest contributions to how the culture is, which now is so enjoyable at the rink, on the ping pong table, in the weight room, throwing darts, you name it. It's just a really fun, very, very competitive environment. But for people that want to compete, it's so much fun to be around. And the guys that really built that are the ones that I thought about.
That's awesome. You mentioned Terry Pagula, and for anyone that doesn't know, he's the owner of the Buffalo Sabres and the Buffalo Bills, and his daughter is a lights out tennis player.
Yeah.
I would be curious that do you get a call from him after a game like that? Because I imagine he's got as much skin as the game as anybody, and must have been elated. And two, just the opportunity to I don't know if you're mentored, but just to learn and be around somebody like that who's been so successful. And I can't see how that doesn't impact you.
Oh, it's everything to this program. I mean, everything. And even in many ways, one I will tell you about, because I just love the story, is that, he said, one thing in terms of his values that he would like to see is that all his organizations, whether it's NHL team, his NFL team, oil companies, etc. He said, look, it sounds cliche, but I really want people everywhere just to treat each other how you want to be treated. It sounds cliche, but that's the only thing I want that I demand out of my organizations. And I thought, oh yeah, good, that's the way it is. But he walks his talk. Like, there was a time we just transferred over here at the arena, the parking security, and it used to be in-house, and we just outsourced it. And it just so happened that he was coming with his president, his vice president, his director of hockey operations, his head scout. They were coming to watch us play, and he brought the whole staff. And Terry's really down to earth guy. Like, he doesn't just fly in his private jet, he drives. So he drove everybody in his Suburban from
No
Buffalo, and
way.
he
That's
pulls into
unreal.
our rink, and he's coming in to park in our parking lot right in front of his rink. And again, we just transferred over the parking security, just happened. So, and they wanted to make sure they didn't let anybody in that shouldn't be there. So when he came up to him, they stopped him and like, "Can I have your name, sir?" And he said, "I'm Terry Pagula." And the guy goes, "No, you got to turn around and get out of here." And so at this time, the
Yeah,
guys are
check the
driving,
name of the arena. Yeah.
"Oh, how's he going to handle this?" Right? And he said, "Excuse me, sir. Like, can you please check again?" And the guy did goes, "Nope." And Terry said, "Please, one more time." "Well, how do you spell how do you spell that?" And it went on until the guy finally, "Oh yeah, there it is." But what happened was the guys in the back were dying, obviously. But Terry handled it exactly like he said. Like never once did he say, "Hey, like see the building back there? Like they ran that name. That's how you spell my name." He never said anything like that. He was incredibly gracious the entire time. So when he says, "I want a great environment, like I want people to treat each other everywhere in the arena, like you want to be treated," it's something he believes in, and he walks his talk. And so from that aspect, he's just that's how he is, and he's really formed a lot of the enjoyment that we have in this entire arena. So with that being said, he's been very gracious when really good things happen. He calls. When things aren't going well, he might give a call too. That has been very encouraging. Like he's certainly not hands on and
Yeah.
micromanaging by any means, but when something significant happens, he's very supportive. He's always been extremely supportive of the culture that we have here, and I can't say enough. I mean, he's everything to Penn State hockey.
No kidding. No kidding. Uh, so speaking of the impact of Penn State hockey, and I'm sure this is probably there's a lot of people and organizations that play a role in this, but I was shocked, man. I was looking at your roster. I counted seven homegrown players from the state of Pennsylvania, and again, and by no means am I trying to discount the level of hockey out there, the youth hockey model, but I never would assume that any team, let alone a team in the state, would have seven players, Division I players from the state, and these are these are ball players on your
Yeah,
roster. I just and then I'm looking at the birth years, and I'm like, shit, like some of these kids are in diapers when you first get to Happy Valley. Can you maybe just speak to the impact your program and cumulatively, like hockey folks in your area have had on developing grassroots hockey?
yeah. Well, this really comes back to Mr. Pagula again because when he had his vision, I mean, certainly it was. I think it was wondering why Penn State, this monster in athletics, is not playing the other monsters of college hockey. He didn't understand why, and they said, "Well, we need arena, etc." And that was really he loves hockey. That was, I think, part of the impetus. But also when you talk to him about his vision of what this arena was going to do, he certainly spoke about Division I hockey at Penn State, but he also spoke about really increasing hockey's profile in all of Pennsylvania and our footprint. That was important to him. I mean, we have another rink here right on campus for that purpose. Like we have two rinks in his arena, and it's because he really wanted to have enough ice time for all the youth programs, all the adult programs, all the sled hockey programs, like everything. He really wanted to increase hockey profile in Pennsylvania, and that's exactly what happened. And boy, was he right. I mean, he was right on. He thought it would be really well received. Well, you look now, I think we have, yeah, I know we have. We've been over 100% capacity every single year. Our student section sells out in minutes. We have a waiting list for season tickets. It's been so incredibly well received. The student section is amazing. Like it's amazing. It's they try to be a part of it and create an incredible atmosphere. And I tell you what, the way Penn Staters have taken this program has been incredible, and the support is unreal. And he's absolutely right. So I think he really wanted this program to encourage hockey players in Pennsylvania to want to grow up and play college hockey, and Penn State hockey program. His vision is a big part of that.
Listen, man, like it's two of the young men that have gone through that program are your two boys, Mac and Magnus, and Mac obviously is playing for you this year. But I'd be curious. We had Brian Riley on this show last
Wow.
year. He
Yes,
had
yes,
go
yes,
to the Army, and honest to God, like one of the most impactful conversations that I've ever had, and what a just a prince of a guy. But he was talking about their program and what those players go through. So I get a text from you after that episode
Yeah.
comes out, and you're like, "Hey, great episode," and you mentioned he's like, "My son plays there," and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And we jumped on a quick call, and I remember like you didn't say, it wasn't like, hey, like it had nothing to do with the on ice stuff. Your son is a hockey player. I could just tell you were so proud that your boy was going through the rigors of that program and what it entails. And I would be curious to know, like, becoming a parent changes all of us. And I mean, you've been a really good hockey coach for a long time, but having the opportunity to see your be on the other side of the table, I guess, to see your two boys go through it, and the conversations they have with their dad, not a coach, how has that maybe shaped you, as a leader of young men?
Yeah, well, I think that it helps both. I think you get experiences as a dad and a coach that help each other out. You know what I mean? I think they're transferable, and you make a ton of mistakes as a coach, and even more as a father, and
Yeah.
you try to recognize it and go forward. But specifically speaking of Coach Riley, I mean, it truly, I think, uh, my entire family are teachers, and I'm really always proud
No
of when
way.
I hear, yeah, every one of them, and sisters, father, mom was a librarian in school, and grandmothers, you name it. But I remember really proud when you meet someone that says, "Oh, your dad coached me, or sorry, taught me, or I was taught by your sister, and it was best teacher I had. It was most fun." And I've always thought that was really good. So if you look at college hockey, and part of your job is to prepare, our student athletes for success, not just in hockey but in life. I think that's a really big part of it, and no one in my mind has done that better than Coach Riley. Like no one. And I think his values are very much consistent, obviously, with West Point, which also I have to tell you, probably I think it's very fair to say prepare their cadets for success anywhere better than any institution in the world. I feel that way, and so I was very for Mac to have the opportunity to play for him and at West Point was life changing, and just so incredibly grateful that he had that experience.
Well, I'm curious. You mentioned you come from a family of teachers, and you touched on, paraphrasing here, but that it's got to be fun, and that
Yeah,
maybe that lesson was instilled in you early. But um, and I mean this sincerely, like as someone who consumes a lot of coaching content on a day to day basis. Like last year, my favorite clip, and I kick myself because I assumed that I'd be able to find it on the internet, and I can't, and I wish I had recorded it, uh, kept it on the PVR or with my phone, but in advance of your semifinal game against BU last year, you're interviewed as coaches are before the game, and they have, the question is like, how do you prepare your team or something like that? And I think, there's coach speak, right? There's like we got to, give it 110%, whatever. And you just had this big grin on your face, man. And you're like, hey, like I just told our team, like, we're going to go out there and like, we're just going to have we're going to enjoy this and have fun. And we're going to play on our toes, and we're going to put like, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically like, we're going to embrace this. And I just thought that for anybody that's coaching young people, especially, like, just what a refreshing message that is, because so often we lean into like, maybe a different message. And I guess this is less of a question, it's just more of an acknowledgement. I think that um you know that you hope that that's the message all of our kids are getting when they go to the rink, the court, the field, or whatever. But interesting to know that that was maybe something that was ingrained in you, through your family.
yeah. Well, it absolutely was, and it's not the pursuit is the goal is not to go have fun. The goal is to embrace the things that you should do. Competing is extremely fun, and the harder you
Yeah.
compete, the more fun it is. It's not that you make things frivolous by any means. I think it's a matter of embracing a challenge that's really hard, and finding a way to get enjoyment out of it and have fun out of it. And I know this comes back to like Coach Riley. I think that's what he's a genius at that. I mean, he knows what the cadets go through. Obviously, his father coached the team before him. He knows that institution and that program better than anybody, and how to get guys, cadets, that go through so much and make sure they have an awesome experience. That's what coaching's about to me. And yeah, I think that's a wonderful. I like hearing that, because if you can have fun competing at the absolute highest level, then I think you're going to have a lot of success in life.
I was talking to a retired Division I hockey coach earlier this week, and they made a comment that they're so glad that they're not coaching in the current climate of NIL, transfer portal, etc. And and specifically, they said, they touched on like how difficult, like that. You as they put it, you've got to effectively, you got to recruit incoming players, but you got to recruit kind of your own players as well on your roster. And but specifically, and I hadn't heard it framed this way, I guess, before, that they say, as a coach, you have so many conversations with players throughout the year, and you say things. You say things like, "Hey, there's gonna, put your time, and you're gonna get an opportunity eventually, or maybe next year you can, see the depth chart and see, so and so is going to graduate or turn pro. You're going to go in here." And they touched on, you have to be so careful with the words that come out of your mouth. Not that you would ever intentionally mislead or try and lie to somebody, but it's a long season, things get said, and just, you'd have to be so cautious of that. And you know I think all that is to say that, the relationships that you build, it would appear to me, they have to be so transparent and so authentic. And how have you learned to navigate that, especially, I mean, I look at last year when it was just like out of the blue, it's like, oh, CHL players are eligible. And I imagine that, every coaching staff in the country had it huddled together and said, okay, how are we going to handle this?
So yeah, I mean, when you talk like that, it makes me think of, I had an AD who told me that in every situation, every new situation, you have choices. You can play the game, you can change the game, or you can get a new game. Figure it out. That's what he said, and it actually, I go back to that so often, and this is a good example, because the NCAA certainly isn't going to listen to me, so I'm not going to change the game. I love hockey, absolutely love college hockey, love Penn State and State College, and certainly want. I'm not leaving this game. I love it. We'll play the game, and our athletic department has been very good about recognizing the changes and that we have to adapt, and been really supportive of that process, and knowing that, hey, you're going to make mistakes, but we have to adapt and go forward and try. Don't be caught just sitting back. Like, let's adapt. And that was really nice to hear. So I think, with all due respect to retired coaches, things change a lot. This happened to be more this season. This year changed more, many more than others. But everything is changing, and I think you really have to embrace it. And if you don't want to, if you can change it back or change it to your wants, go ahead. In this case, we don't have a say in it. It came on us. So either play the game or get a new game. I love this game. I absolutely love it, and I wouldn't want to be doing any other things. So our staff's just embraced adapting, and we've had great support from the athletic department on how to do that. And so we're playing the game.
We touched on, just athletics at Penn State, the legacy and the tradition there. I mean, I'm sure just the opportunity to go grab a coffee on campus might spark a conversation with another coach, or somebody who has had great success. It might not even be in sport. I mean, just some of the other professors. I mean, you're just rubbing shoulders with some really accomplished and passionate folks. In your time there, have there been any perhaps people, conversations, encounters that have really impacted you as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, many. I think it's been an education this entire time, with very many people that from every. I don't want to start naming names, because but you look at Cale Sanderson, our wrestling coach, who was a guy.
Yeah.
He's he's barely human in the sense that he's never, like you can't really compare different people. This guy, he went undefeated as a college wrestler. He's won 12 or 14 national championships. And but you certainly, so it's hard, you can't really look at that and say that's how I'm going to compare myself to. But the way
Yeah.
he carries himself and his values, I've learned a ton. And not only him, I mean, Coach Katie this year with volleyball, I learned a lot from her. I could go down a number of coaches,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to, because I could honestly say that about every one of them. And we have some pretty special administrators here too that are very educated in this industry. And there's been a lot of great student athletes that came through here and taught me a lot as well. I think the whole thing is in education. I don't think coaching and everything, coaching adapts. You just mentioned this year about how there's significant changes. I don't think you ever say you got it. And I think you talked about relationships and being transparent with student athletes, and how coaching has changed on how you communicate with the generations that come. I think it's all a challenge. It's fun, and if you have the attitude that you have to learn with it, then it's fun every day. And Penn State has been awesome teacher in that regard, an awesome teacher. And I truly appreciate Penn State's values. And if you could come to the campus and see, for example, Thon, I don't know if you know about Thon. Have you
No.
heard about the Thon? Oh my goodness, Aaron, this is incredible. So Thon is a 46-hour dance marathon that's put on
Oh,
entirely.
it's not a person, it's a thing.
It's a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a 46-hour dance marathon put on entirely by the student body, entirely, fully run. It's unbelievable. They've raised, I think last year was $17 million.
Holy, are you serious?
They've raised, since I've been here, they've raised well over $150 million for pediatric cancer. And
Wow,
the
that's
show that
amazing.
they put, it's incredible. It's by far no other university, nothing comes close to this. But when you have a student body that does put this on, and it's not just the matter of the money, but if you get to take a part in this and actually participate in Thon, they have it at the Bryce Jordan Center, which is an 18,000 seat arena, which has a lot of concerts, and it's packed and it's unbelievable and it's emotional, and it's, so if you ever a part of that, you really appreciate the values of this university and the student body. So when you do that, again, I said I really appreciate the values, but you can learn from so many different people, whether they're in athletics or not, here at Penn State. And it's happened to me 100 times in the 15 years. And I'm very grateful for it.
Well, yeah, just getting back to your tenure there of the 15 years. I mean, you are in a profession where the majority of coaches, I mean, if you look at their resumes, they don't stay in one place very long, whether that's because they're moving on or perhaps because they're told that, they've got to go find a new path. And, I think just the nature of what I do, I get a fair amount of parents that'll reach out and say, hey, we're navigating our son and daughter, like what would you look for, or what advice would you have? And I've come to appreciate that. If I'll tell them, if you can find a coach who's not in a hurry to get to the next place and it's just they're where their feet are, that's a pretty good person to be around from my estimations. At the same time, like human nature would suggest that after 15 years, it's easy to get complacent. How are you a better coach today than when you first got to Happy Valley?
Uh, in so many ways, like I said, I mean, it is an experience thing. Like you get better. I think you get better every season, and you learn you learn from really good seasons, you learn from bad ones, but you continue to learn every year. And you talk about complacency though, like not here. Not here. This is, again, we went through, when you're around a wrestling program that wins the national championship every year, or the volleyball team, the women's volleyball team that did what they did, and you look around, you have 110,000 people coming and watching a football team that's ranked number 2 in the nation. I mean, complacency isn't exactly, I don't think that's an issue here. I don't, at least, I mean, you're just really motivated to become the very best to get the edge on everything. And this athletic department, I think one of the things I just love so much about Penn State athletics is they really, really do everything to make sure that the student athletes have advantage possible. So their attitude is like, they don't get complacent. If they can get better in nutrition, they do. If they can get better in rehab and injury prevention, like they do. If they can get any amount better in strength and conditioning, they do. Like, they put their money where their mouth is for supporting student athletes. So when you're around that every day, boy, it's very, very, I'm not even sure it's possible to be complacent, considering the success of so many programs and what they do and what they aspire to and how many resources we put into it. So yeah, complacency isn't actually an issue, I don't think.
Love that. So last one. So in our house, Friday nights are movie and takeout night.
What's your favorite movie, by the way? I'd love to know.
Oh, favorite movie. Gosh, that's a great question. Like Good Will Hunting's definitely up there. Shawshank Redemption, first two that come to mind. But how about you? What's your favorite?
That's the same. Like, I can tell we're in the same genre. It is. I those two for sure come every time someone asks me, but probably, to be honest, I say The Matrix. I love The Matrix. I love it.
No way. That's
I didn't even understand it the first two times I watched it, and then the third time it actually clicks, and you're like, my goodness, like, these writers are genius. Like, oh my God, blew me away. So I would add that one to it.
Okay, well, I had the last week, Labor Day weekend, I was hanging out with some buddies. We went fishing, and then one day we just somehow the movie Major League got thrown on.
Oh yeah.
For anybody that's from our area, like, if you haven't seen Major League, go back and rewatch it. It's great. Best sports movie of all time.
Yeah.
But so anyways, it's movie takeout night. It's Friday, February 28th. So we get our sushi, we sit down, and we turn the TV on to pick out the movie. And the TV comes on. It's on TSN. So for anybody that's not from Canada, that's like our ESPN. And they've got a college hockey game on. And it's not just any college hockey game. It's Penn State's hosting Minnesota. And I believe it was the last weekend or last regular season weekend of the year. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so my little guy, he's 6, loves hockey. He's like, what's this? He's asking questions. And he's like, oh, he's like, he knows like the Penn State logo from football. He's like, are the football players playing hockey? And I'm like, no, it's hockey. And I'm like, that's guy. I'm like, I know that guy. And so I tell him, and then, he's like, can we just watch for a little bit? And I said, yeah, for sure. So we're watching, and, and 5 minutes goes by, and then he just says, he goes, that looks like the funnest place to play hockey.
I agree.
And it's a whiteout. It is electric. And I look at him, I'm like, that does look like the funnest place to play hockey. Can you just, as we close here, guy, can you just maybe touch on, like, for your, like, what's the experience of being a hockey player at Penn State?
Oh my God. Well, you have to feel it. Like you do. There's videos that are pretty cool about what the atmosphere is like there. It's awesome, but it doesn't do it justice. You really have to come feel it. You feel the atmosphere here. And what I love about it is, like, because it's been, I think, 14 years since I've been here. And then since we moved into Pagula, the first Roar Zone was, what is that now, 12 years ago, something like that. And I mean, remember they were new too. We didn't have a Division I program. We never had a student section. And so they were brand new. And to watch where they are now from where they came is so much fun, because they developed as well and evolved. And now it's choreographed. They're singing and dancing the whole time, and they're shouting, and it is amazing. And the rest of the arena has just bought into what they do in such an amazing way that it used to be just the student section doing dance and stuff. And now it's like, you get to the arena, it is awesome. It truly is the best atmosphere I've ever been in a hockey game. And we get to do it almost every weekend during the season, which is incredible. And I know I'm talking about it, but you got to come see. You have to come feel it, Aaron. You got to come feel it. I can't. It's difficult to talk about.
Okay, we're gonna do that. But hey, man, listen. I mean, there has never been more interest and intrigue around college hockey as I think there is this year. And great to see you guys are right in the thick of it. And appreciate you making time for us. Best of luck to you and your squad this year. And we'll be watching.
Well, thanks a lot. And you know what? Continue to do a great job. I mean, you're doing a great job for all hockey coaches at every level with what you do. And it is great to see. So thanks for having me on, and continue doing what you're doing, because it's very helpful to us.